All right, so Bernie Sanders, chairman of the Budget Committee, has been going absolutely buck wild over the last 24 hours as he is finally going a little bit on the offensive against Kyrsten Sinema and Joe Manchin as they continue to try to tank this $3.5 trillion reconciliation bill. We still don't really know the details of exactly what they are opposing in this bill, and that's exactly what Bernie Sanders has been calling out. Now, I got a couple of things I want to show you guys here because some pretty entertaining stuff has been happening over the last 24 hours. So first, let's start it off here. Scoop: Bernie Sanders withheld support for a joint statement condemning last week's protests against Kyrsten Sinema because it also wouldn't include a rebuke of her political views and email exchange leaked to Axios shows. So basically, you guys remember a couple of days ago, I covered that story of Kyrsten Sinema being followed into a bathroom by a number of protesters who had a problem with her immigration policy stances. And, I didn't really have much sympathy for Kyrsten Sinema because she is an entirely corrupted ghoul, right? I don't really care if people are harassing her wherever she goes. I think that corrupt politicians like her don't really deserve a single moment's in peace. So I completely agree with that protest. And so basically the Democratic leadership tried to put out a statement where they were going to condemn these protesters. And Bernie Sanders said, well, I'm not going to be signing on to this letter right here unless you include this statement at the beginning. Quote, while we hope Senator Sinema will change her position on prescription drug reform and support a major reconciliation bill, what happened in that video was a violation, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so he basically demanded that if he was going to sign this letter, they include this portion within that letter. They obviously said no, and they said, thanks for the reply. My boss can't agree to that edit, and separately, I'll update everyone soon on the signers. Want to make sure I give everyone the chance to process and consider. And Bernie Sanders, basically his team, just turned around and said, we're not going to be signing that shit. Y'all can go fuck off. And by the way, take out Senate Democratic leadership from the headline. Okay, so absolutely boss man move from Bernie Sanders here. You absolutely love to see it. Again, shouldn't really be having sympathy for corporate ghouls like Kyrsten Sinema, right? It's obviously more important that we condemn her opposition to lowering prescription drug prices than it is we condemn some protesters who are going and harassing her in a bathroom. But Bernie Sanders obviously proving he has his head in the right space there. And then we have another moment here with Kyrsten Sinema. Bernie Sanders publicly calls on Senator Sinema to be more forthcoming about her policy views on reconciliation. Quote, Senator Sinema's position is that she does not negotiate publicly, which is fucking ridiculous. I don't know what that means. Don't know where she's coming from. And he's absolutely correct. Tell us what you want and be very specific about it, okay? This is something that Kyrsten Sinema actually said the other day. I don't negotiate publicly. You are a goddamn public servant. It is literally in the job description for you to not only be negotiating in public, you are negotiating for the public. You are supposed to be negotiating on behalf of the public. So she's running around doing this cocktail circuit where she's going and having all of these fundraisers with her corporate donors. And meanwhile, she's saying, I don't negotiate publicly. You're basically just going and taking your marching orders behind closed doors from these corporate donors who are giving you the talking points to go out and use. And then you're not even coming out and describing what specific policies you have a problem with. This is absolutely ridiculous. And Bernie Sanders obviously wanting some clarification there. And in addition to that, he also did a press conference yesterday. Okay. And so here's where he calls out Joe Manchin more viciously, I guess. And he starts out here with just a good point in trying to reframe how this entire discussion has been happening. And then we're going to get into another video that he actually put out that was calling specifically on Joe Manchin to reveal what his actually policy objections to the bill are. So first, let's start it off with this. Just a little bit of good reframing here from Bernie Sanders.
Today, first, let us be clear. Poll after poll, including polls in West Virginia, show that what we are trying to do in this reconciliation bill is enormously popular among the American people. But it's not just the American people who support what we're trying to do. 48 out of 50 members of the Senate Democratic Caucus support the bill, and 210 members, about 96% of the House Democratic Caucus, support the bill. And by the way, the President of the United States supports the bill. And while we're at it, let me tell you who is vigorously opposed to this legislation. And I think it's important that the American people understand that, because this is the corruption of American politics.
All right, so he goes in and he calls out all of the big pharma. He calls out fossil fuel companies. He calls out the health insurance companies that are all being corrupting influences in this conversation. But I think the main thing that he was saying there at the beginning is the important part, right? He's reframing this because the entire time that we have been having these negotiations, the media has been inaccurately calling Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema centrists. They are not centrists. They are not moderates. I don't even believe Joe Biden is a moderate. I think he's pretty far right relative to the American people, right? Specifically on policies like Medicare for All, the Green New Deal, bill, other policies that the overwhelming majority of the country actually support and which Joe Biden opposes, which would make him not a moderate by definition. But even if you are going to accept that Joe Biden is a moderate, well, okay, then the $3.5 trillion bill is the moderate bill. That is Joe Biden, the moderate's bill, okay? It's not Bernie Sanders' bill. If you remember, Bernie Sanders wanted a $6 trillion bill, and before that, they were even talking about in the House, among the squad members, they were even talking about a $10 trillion bill, okay? So the $3.5 trillion bill is the moderate compromise, right? And so that's the reframing that he's trying to put forward there, is that, yeah, 48 members of the Senate Democratic Caucus support the $3.5 trillion bill. So how the fuck are you a centrist if you are opposing, if you are in the tiny 2% minority in the Senate who is opposing this bill up against the 48 members of the Senate who actually support this bill and the overwhelming majority of the country that supports this bill? That doesn't make you a centrist. That makes you a far-right extremist. And so that's what Bernie Sanders was trying to say there. And now he put together basically another video where, if you remember, Joe Manchin the other day was calling it entitlement mentalities if this country was going to move forward slightly, ever so slightly, expanding our social safety net with the policies that are in the $3.5 trillion bill. He was calling that an entitlement mentality. The same Joe Manchin who profits hundreds of thousands of dollars a year from his government subsidized coal plant. Okay, so this guy has some opinions on entitlement, but Bernie Sanders pretty quickly shuts them down in this video.
I don't believe that we should turn our society into an entitlement society.
Now, Senator Manchin, as I understand it, talked about today about not wanting to see our country become an entitlement society. Well, I am not exactly sure what he means by that. Does that mean that we end the $300 direct payments for working class parents, which have cut childhood poverty in this country as a result of the American Rescue Plan in half? Is protecting working families and cutting childhood poverty and entitlement? Senator Manchin has been extremely critical of the $3.5 trillion proposal that many of us support. In fact, 9 out of 11 members of the Budget Committee support. But the time is long overdue for him to tell us with specificity, not generalities, we're beyond generalities, with specificity, what he wants and what he does not want, and to explain that to the people of West Virginia and America. I look forward to working with Senator Manchin and everyone else in the Senate to pass a strong reconciliation bill as well as a bipartisan infrastructure bill. Thank you.
All right, so that's really the statement that I would like to hear from Joe Biden right now, right? Joe Biden has been virtually completely silent as all of these negotiations are happening. He's just standing in the middle and allowing 2 senators to completely tank his entire agenda, basically. But Bernie Sanders is making a good point here, right? Talking about, Joe Manchin, you need to specifically point out the actual policies within this bill that you want to cut, and then you'll have to go back to West Virginia and explain to the people in West Virginia who desperately need these policies that you don't support them, and you will have to justify to them why you don't support them. I'm sure that should be very easy for a guy like Joe Manchin, who, according to the rest of the media, just happens to live in a very conservative constituency that opposes all of these bills, even though that's not true according to the polling data. So, good luck to Joe Manchin to go back and explain to West Virginia voters why he opposes giving them the ability to afford adequate child care or their prescription drugs. I doubt he's going to be able to do that effectively. And so this is exactly the right strategy from Bernie Sanders. Tell us exactly, specifically, which policies you want to cut, and then have to go justify that to your constituents. And so what was Manchin's response to this? Did he give us a detailed list at any of the policies that he is opposing? No, he just doubled down on being extremely unnecessarily vague. So Senator Joe Manchin is telling colleagues that progressives need to pick just one of President Biden's 3 signature policies for helping working families and discard the other 2. What is this arbitrary random standard that he is setting up? He wants progressives to choose one among expanded child tax credit, paid family medical leave, or subsidies for childcare. So, in other words, Joe Manchin thinks 2 of those should completely disappear from this bill. So he doesn't think that people need subsidies for childcare. He doesn't think parents need to be able to afford childcare. He doesn't believe in the child tax credit. So he doesn't, again, believe that parents should be able to afford to be able to feed their kids. And he doesn't support family medical leave. What kind of a demon puts forward an ultimatum like this, completely, again, arbitrary? And I think it was a fair point here by Cody Johnston. He had the right idea. So again, this is completely arbitrary, right? Like I was just saying, he'd say 6 signature policies or pick 3. Of 9 signature policies, he would say pick 5. And his only guiding principle is do less than what you want to do. I mean, that's literally what it seems like right now, because what is your standard? Are you saying American families don't need a child tax credit? They obviously do. And as Bernie Sanders was just pointing out there, these tax credits have dramatically reduce child poverty in the United States. So like, what is your actual argument for getting rid of these? He would say, oh, they're an entitlement mentality. It's an entitlement mentality. This coming from Joe fucking Manchin, again, who wants to subsidize the entire fossil fuel industry that he can then profit hundreds of thousands of dollars from. That guy is worried about entitlements for poor, struggling families who just want to feed their kids and have the ability to send them to be taken care of. I mean, it's just completely laughably ridiculous. But again, it's also just completely arbitrary, as Cody is pointing out here. It's not really based on anything. It's not based on any of the substance behind any of these policies, and you know that because Joe Manchin is trying to put it on progressives to choose which policies are going to be taken out. He doesn't even have the balls to go out and make an affirmative argument and say, I don't believe in paid family medical leave. I don't believe in the child tax credit. He won't even make those arguments because he knows that they're extremely popular. If you go and look at the polling, as Bernie was saying at the beginning of this clip, the overwhelming majority of the country supports all of these policies. If you see here, extending child tax benefits, that's a +9. You see this with basically all of the policies that are within this. It's a plus majority of them are even plus dozens in favor of them as opposed to oppose them. So it's not even close, and Joe Manchin knows that. That's why he's being vague. That's why Kirsten Sinema won't come out and say that she opposes lowering prescription drug prices, because 90% of the fucking country is on the other side of her, okay? So this is what Bernie has to keep doing. This is what the rest of the progressives in the squad and the rest of the progressives in the Senate have to keep doing, and really the rest of the entire Democratic Party. You have a substantial amount of leverage here, and it's obvious because Joe Manchin and Kirsten Sinema are not even willing to come out and make the arguments against the policies that they're opposing. So back them into a corner and force them to do that. All of the members of the squad, all Bernie Sanders, the rest of the Democratic caucus, need to be going on all of these news shows every single goddamn day and calling them out to mention the exact specific set of policies they want stricken from the bill, and then force them to go justify that to their constituents, because guess what? They can't. They don't have any legitimate arguments against expanding child tax credits or against paid family medical leave. These are overwhelmingly popular policies that the vast majority of the country wants. So you got a little bit of leverage here. There's no reason to completely concede on any of these things, and definitely don't let goddamn Joe Manchin or Kirsten Sinema arbitrarily cut down this bill for absolutely no reason.